A play focusing on black history has been playing at the Stratford East Theatre in London, and for the show on Wednesday, white audience members were asked not to attend, in an attempt to make the performance free from the white gaze. You join me on the front of Newcastle's Tyne River, where I spoke with Grahame, who responded to the news by saying this.
I think it's wrong, and I could follow that up by saying that sometimes things go too far either way, and I think obviously historically black people in general were treated appallingly, but I'd like to think we've moved on from there, and perhaps not, because I'm not black, so I'm not experiencing that. But I don't think it does the cause any good by being as radical as that, if you like. And I dare say they would argue you need to be radical to make change, but I just think it annoys people who would never have been hostile to any group in the first place. So I think it's wrong.
Why exactly do you think it would make people more hostile to it?
Because they would see that as some sort of discrimination towards a group, and the very thing that they were against in the first place, the point they're trying to make. So I just think in an ideal world everybody would be treated equally. And I'll give you an example. When I first went to Germany, because of the way the history between Europe and Germany, if you like, from the war, in particular the Second World War, I thought that you would have to whisper in hushed tones that you were English, because there would be some animosity there. Absolutely none of it. It's not the Germans' fault of current generation, even the previous generation, that there was something appalling went on. And what the Germans do, rather than hide it, they actually encourage you to visit these monuments, etc. And I think that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be hiding history, we should be learning from it. You know, and I can remember racism. I mean, I'm sure it hasn't gone away. But certainly when I was growing up, late 60s and then the 70s, anybody who says it didn't happen is telling lies. But you don't move on unless you've learned from what's happened. And sometimes things are airbrushed. So I think it's wrong.
I suppose the argument made by, I believe, the theatre director, yes, or the director of the play, sorry, this particular play, was that he expected perhaps a black audience or black members of the audience to have a slightly different reaction and experience watching the play. And so I think the idea was that if you were surrounded by people having that same racial experience, there may be some benefit to that. Do you think there's any logic in that? Or?
Well, again, I can't speak as being a black person, so it's difficult for me to say. But at the end of the day, and I know it's probably a little bit idealistic, we should be in a situation now where your colour doesn't matter. But it probably does to a lot of people, and I've got some friends of colour where I thought it had moved on from what I was explaining to you earlier in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s to an extent, yet I've been with them when I've seen there still is racism there, there's no doubt about it. So I don't know, but I know it would get a lot of people's backs up, and I also think that a lot of normal people, if you like, who aren't deeply into the argument of either side, perhaps don't get it, and they just think normally, and it would annoy people, because sometimes but again, I'm not black, so it's difficult to comment.
Fair enough. Based on your experiences then, as you say, you've had these sort of or witnessed these kind of negative encounters, but obviously on the whole, do you think there's been progress towards sort of racial integration? Do you think we're doing a good job of that?
Well, absolutely, because if you went back when I was first going into Newcastle, into town, when I was very early 80s, there was very few black people. Simple as that. And certainly in the bars, nightclubs, everybody knew who they were, the dancing, etc. It was such a small proportion. It's over 50 years since I first went to watch Newcastle playing football. I've still got a season ticket, and at one time there were black players who were treated absolutely appallingly, not just here, but I think the north was worse. Now it's not even an issue, although you do hear tales in places like Italy and Spain and South America, I think, and in Eastern Europe, where a lot of black players are treated differently. But yeah, there's a lot more people, and it gets to the point where most people judge people on who the person is and not what they look like.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Excellent.